Today, on Rocket Punch, we're gonna stick it to the man and tell him we don't need your $50 core rulebooks.
But don't you have, like, every Free League core book there is?
You don't have to tell him that now. No, we're gonna go punk rock with an awesome zine. Let's take a look at Durf. It's quite the accomplishment, right?
That's right. With this week's purchase of Blade Runner, I now have every Free League core book. I have a sickness, and it can't be helped. But that is not a topic for today. No, today's topic is about zines. And today we have Durf. I recently found this. I've heard about it a little bit before in the ethosphere, but then all of a sudden the Kickstarter popped up out of nowhere, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember hearing about that. And then I looked at the Kickstarter, and I was like, oh, I gotta get it. And then I just got excited by Durf. So Durf is Dutch, apparently, for courageousness or bravery, that kind of thing. Daring do, I guess, is also a way you could translate it. So that's pretty cool. I like that. And I like this art. This is a kind of just zany kind of art I like. I don't know. I like a lot of different styles. And I like this kind of, it's not really cartoony, but it's it's very dynamic, I guess. It's very animated looking. It looks like they're going to step off the page. No skeletons, not yet, but there are in the Durf Kickstarter. There's a cool little skilly guy in there, and I like skilly guys. So yeah, we're going to take a look at Durf, which is by Emil Bovin. It's a very small zine. I think it's only 12 pages, and it's over on Itch, and I'll put a link in the below area. So there's a little bit about the intent of the game, and then bam, right into creating a character. And in this, it's very Mouse Ritter, it's very Into the Odd, it's very Maze Rats, but it's its own thing. So it's just got a lot of influences like that. I don't know exactly, I think he says exactly what it is, but so you got only 3 stats, your strength, dex, and will, but this generates stats based on just a D3, and I like that it just is mods. So in this game, you're going to use a D6 and your D20, and then it's a D4 over here. So you're just going to roll a D3 or your D6 halved for each of these. So strength, roll a D3, dex, roll a D3, will, roll a D3. And that's just your mod that you're going to add to your D20 to perform things, either opposed rolls or saves. And in here, I like the inventory slots, and you also have a hit die. So each hit die is how many D6s you kind of roll. So it's like your level, essentially. It'll describe more in a little bit. I speak words. And then you have inventory slots, which are 10 plus your strength mod up there. So if you're familiar with Mouse Ritter, Maze Rats, that kind of thing, then your slots are your inventory, and they're also your health, essentially. So belongings, you start with 2 supply, and it's just a general thing, which I kind of like, because it's not really a survival game, so you're just going to have an abstract supply, and I'll go into that a little bit later. And then you get your dagger, and then you're going to roll a D40, which is a D4 for the first digit, and then a D10 for the second digit, and you get a whole bunch of really cool items. So that's pretty cool. And then you roll 2D6, and that's your starting gold, and then you name your character, and you're off to the races. So how to play, so you're going to make action rolls based on those 3 things, your strength, your dexterity, or your will, and you're going to roll a d20 and add the mod of that number, and anything over a 15 is a success. So it's the kind of game that you shouldn't be rolling all the time. So it's kind of like whenever there's something that's really iffy, if you're capable of doing it or not, you're going to roll, because DC 15, that's pretty hard. So it's very old school in that way of not rolling for everything. Describe what you want to do, and if it's cool, GM says, yeah. So anytime there's like an NPC, so combat essentially, opposed rolls of some kind, each side is going to roll a d20, and add their mod. So whoever's higher wins. Then you get buffs and breaks. So this is a little bit different from boons and banes or advantage, disadvantage. It's kind of interesting how this works. So each buff or break is going to be a D6 additional mod die, essentially. So that's pretty cool. So when you make the action roll with a buff or a break, you're going to roll a D6, and that's going to be in addition to your mods with the D20. So it's like you could get a 6, you could get a 3. So that's really cool. I like that idea. That's something kind of new, or at least I've never heard about it, or I don't know. Maybe I have, I don't remember. And then those stack. So you can have 1 break and 2 buffs, so they can cancel each other out. That's kind of interesting a little bit. And then inventory and stress over here. So you have your inventory slots, 10 plus your strength. Most things take 1 slot. It'll tell you in the gear like how many slots it takes. And then actions and things you do, like pushing, will make you receive a stress, like magic or some other thing. Anytime you spend a day resting in a safe location, it removes all stress because it's not like a wound. So there's stress and wounds. When you push, you can take 1 stress, and then that gives you an extra buff you can take. If you're not situationally getting a buff, you can add a buff, or you might be able to add 2. But that only works if you have empty inventory slots, of course. So in combat, I like it. It's a D6 for each side, and whoever gets the highest wins. I like that style, or even just the simple D6. 1 to 3 is enemies, 4 to 6 is bosses. But this does a D6 per side. So for close combat, you're just going to make an opposed strength roll, and then whoever wins does their weapon's damage, and the damage is just a static number. And if there's a tie, the attacker wins. Then for range combat, you're going to be using your dex, but if the defender wins, then they just dodge. They don't get to attack back. And then a critical hit is a D20. It does double the weapon damage, and we got a little skull dude there, which is nice. And then I like this. This is a cool idea. So if you roll a 1 on your D20, it's not so much a critical fail as it is it wears your weapon. So whatever damage your weapon did, it drops it to just a static 1. So that's pretty cool. And then you can, when you go to your kind of rest time or campsite or whatever, you can spend a supply to fix your weapon. Then morale, just kind of like most old school, it's 2d6 and they have a morale score. So damage and armor, this is not like an AC type game, so it's going to be ablative damage to your armor, and it's going to reduce armor points. And then if you have no armor points remaining, then you're going to directly take the hit and get a wound. And shields, if you have a shield, any incoming damage reduces that by 1, but you can't ever reduce a 1 to a 0. Then hit dice, so every time you receive wounds, you're going to roll how many hit dice you have, and each hit die is a d6. And then if the result is less than or equal to the wounds that you've accumulated, so if I get hit by like 4 points of wound damage, and then I'm a level 1, so I roll 1d6. And if I can get over 4 wound levels, if I roll a 5 or a 6, I don't die. But if I roll like a 1 or a 2, I die. So rest and healing. Anytime I spend a day resting in a safe location, I heal all my wounds. I get to repair my armor and restore worn weapons and things like that. I can restore my weapons and armor during the expedition, but it costs supply. But if I'm back in town, it doesn't cost supply. And then you got your time. So you got your round, 10 seconds, turn 10 minutes, watch 4 hours. And then you have your advancement. So it's 1,000 times your current HD. And then if I get to a new level, I get to increase one attribute by 1 point, but nothing above 8. And I can learn a new spell. So I can do either that, increase the attribute or learn a new spell. And it only goes up to 12 levels. So rewarding XP, you kind of get a best of both worlds. So you get 1 XP per gold. So it encourages exploration and getting treasure. But you also get 25 XP for each hit die of a monster you defeat. So I kind of like that because I like going around and beating up monsters. That's always fun. But you also want to make players go do things. And if gold doesn't mean anything, they're not going to go do anything because typically, you end up just stockpiling gold eventually. So spell casting, what I like in this game too, is that anyone can be a spellcaster if you have a book of some kind. You need a spell of some kind. So to cast a spell, you have to have at least one inventory slot empty, because every time you cast a spell, you get one stress if you cast it. And to cast a spell, you gotta make a roll on your willpower roll, and a successful roll means that the spell is cast and you take one stress. If you fail the roll, the spell is not cast and the PC gains no stress. But if you roll a 1, then it's fun time. You get the D20 blunders table, and a lot of crazy stuff can happen here. Like number 9, it starts raining sardines. Or 11, caster strongly smells like roses for 1d6 days. That's kind of weird. 16, caster becomes mildly allergic to fur for 1d6 hours. Oh, that could be bad if you're in a bear cave or something like that. I don't know. And then there's a whole bunch of cool little spells here. So wherever it is, X, it'll say like a description X, and that is basically half your caster's will. So if it affects a party of creatures. So like healing hand heals X plus 2 wounds. Or levitate, up to X targets can levitate themselves. You got talk with spirits, weave light. You got a demonic servant, which is cool. Animate armor, bolt. A whole bunch of little spells. Not a ton of spells, but based on this, it's pretty easy to mod and kind of make your own spells, which is always, to me, the most fun part of being a wizard, is having crazy spells, and I love making my own. So here you got equipment. Most things take up 1 slot, and some take up a couple more. And then you got gold, which doesn't take any inventory slots, which is nice. I don't want it to take up, I only have like 10 slots, so. And then you have supply, which is an abstract item. So each supply costs 5 gold points, and it kind of represents commonly available items that you might just want to pull out in the middle. And I think that's kind of cool, where you could just like, oh, I didn't mention that, but I want that. So just so happens that I have it here in my bag. It gives you a list of some supply item examples, like a 10-foot pole, 3 days of rations, a bedroll, bag of caltrops, some chalk pieces, crowbar or sledgehammer, face paint, flask of oil, lantern or torch, bandages, rope, water skin, and things that it is not. It is not weapons or armor, ammo, tent, spyglass, livestock, vehicles, specialized equipment, musical instruments, fancy clothing, books and maps, anything that's not widely available and cheap to most adventurers. Most of them have these sample things. You can also use your supply to repair armor and restore worn weapons. And each supply can restore 2 armor points. And then ammo. So typically you do not keep track of ammo or individual arrows or bullets, but you have to roll a d6 at the end of combat. So as long as you don't roll a 1, then you have ammunition left over. If you roll a 1, you have 1 more shot left, which is kind of fun. It's better than 0. So it's kind of like, I have this one last bullet or arrow or whatever. Light just kind of talks about torches and lanterns, how long that lasts. And then you have your weapons and armor. So it's just that static damage and then how much it is. Same down here. Then it gives you just some non-player characters, which is all your monsters and other creatures. So it's a very simple stat block. It's just a skill, its hit die, and its morale level. And then it has what kind of attacks it does. So skill is it's strength, dex, and willpower in 1. So you just add that to any action rolls. So any of the d20 rolls, same as like your character does. So your hit die is how many d6 they're going to roll when it becomes wounded. And in here, when it hits 0 HD, it dies. Armor is how much damage it can take before it starts going into wounds. And morale is same as everything. So there's a little reaction table down here. Roll 2d6, and then it also has a little portion on hirelings. So a hireling can be hired for 1 gold point per skill per day. So that's kind of cool. So if you want a no-skilled creature, it just costs a gold. If you want a more like a NPC that's traveling around with you, you could spend like 3 gold points and give it a little bit of a strength, give it a sword or something, I guess. And then it takes half a share of your treasure. Ouch! And you can hire up to your will score in hirelings. And it gives you a little detail here, how to convert OSR monsters, so that's nice. And then it gives you a little sample of some NPCs. And then on the back, the last page gives you some magical items, how to identify them, magical weapons and armors, and some scrolls. So a scroll allows a creature to cast the infused spell without having to make a willpower roll. So it just automatically casts, and you don't have to take stress. But it automatically destroys a spell. So those are pretty handy in the adventure, so you don't have to take stress. That's like the biggest part. And then if you know a spell, you can turn it into a scroll for 200 gold pieces and taking a full day to create it. So that can be like an extra backup. Like if you're full, you've already casted spells and you're pretty full of stress or wounds or whatever, then you can use your scroll of healing or whatever and maybe get rid of some of that stress so you can keep going. And then kind of tells you a couple magic items. So yeah, so that's Durf. I hope you guys check it out. It's really cool. And also go check out the Kickstarter. It's a full color, big book. It's got all kinds of stuff. It expands on all these tables and stuff. But it's also, it doesn't go into bloatedness. So it just basically expands on all this. But yeah, you can still totally play with Durf. I recommend you go check it out. Links below. And until we meet again, Rocket Punch! Later.